Good morning, everybody. This is going to be part 2 of our H15 Ingersoll Rand starter build. Part 1 was a teardown, so today we're going to start part 2. So all my parts are clean. Got everything ready to go here. Everything's prepped and ready, so we have all our pieces and parts that come out the kit. Pardon my guy over there, he's working on some heads, making some noise. Some of these items will be used and some of these items will not be. This is all the parts that come in the kit. All the complete bearings and seal sets. Some of the snap rings come in the kits, so they get changed. We'll go through those and get rid of them as we go. Matter of fact, we will not be keeping this one, this one, this one, and there was another small one here we will not be holding on to. I'm going to put those aside just in case, because we have those here, here, and the big one. There's only one that we keep that goes on the piston sleeve. It goes in here whenever you put your bearing in, and that fits in this one. That's the only one we'll be keeping. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll get this thing started. What we're going to be needing, first off, it's going to be this lip seal. This lip seal is going to go in the bottom of the drum. So we can set it down at the bottom of the drum, and I have a special press for that, which is this big old valve, and that fits perfect in the bottom of that drum. I'm going to get our hammer. That sits our seal in the bottom of my drum. You can see it here on the inside when our shaft comes through, which will be this part. So next is going to go in, it's going to be our big bearing. All the bearings are pre-packed.
Between the heels.
Okay. Okay, great. I don't know. Put in our big bearing, and that goes down the same way. And we have our spring seat for our large spring. That's going to drop in face down with the lip up, so our spring doesn't hit against our bearing. So then we're going to put this big spring in here, and then we'll get this piece, and we're going to put in our O-rings. We have one O-ring that goes on the inside, and we have another O-ring that goes on the outside. It's a skinny O-ring. Yeah, it gets rather difficult to put these on sometimes when your fingers don't work right. Fat fingers. Okay, so we got that on. What we have to do our piston assembly. Our piston assembly is going to comprise of a jaw set, a retainer, and our snap ring. Now the way that this goes in, this is going to go in like so. Our jaw assembly, like that. But we have to take this little doodad here, which is just going to hold our drive assembly together on our main gear drive. We have to put on our little O-ring retainer that keeps the bolt on the hub. Yeah, so we got that little O-ring on there, and it's just a keeper so the bolt doesn't fall out as well as it does. So what we're going to do now, we're going to drop this into bolt up, because we have to access the Allen head from the other side. That's going to fall in there like that, and we're going to get this small pilot bearing. The pilot bearing runs on in the shaft on this side, because when you bolt it together, the pilot bearing runs on your main gear here. So when it's all bolted together, it supports this right here so it doesn't get out of whack. So we're going to drop this in our tube like so. Adjust my camera angle just a hair. And then once that's in there, we're going to put our jaw assembly on. It's like a dog on an outboard motor on a lower unit. It's like a shift almost, but it only goes one direction. It's just so it kicks out when the bended gear kicks out when the engine starts and the starter stops turning, so it doesn't mess anything up. Gives it some play. Okay, so now we're going to get our next set here. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the gear so it slides with splines like it should. And this is going to go in here like that. Okay. You can hear it as you turn the bottom part, the top part clicks. Okay, so now, just a moment. There's the grease off my finger. We're going to use this new spring. It's going to go here. We're going to put in our retainer cap. And then we are going to put on our snap ring. We'll grab our snap ring pliers. And the way the grooves are in a snap ring is quite crazy, but it works. Close our snap ring, push down, and our snap ring should fall into place, being difficult. There's a lot of parts to this starter. It's very complex, but it's very strong, very durable. Right. Now our snap ring is in a groove. So let's make sure. Okay. Yep, our snap ring is in our groove. Just to make sure. I don't want any issues. Okay. So we have that in place. So now our ratcheting system. As you can hear it, it's very hard to turn. That works. We'll go ahead and we'll get our bearing pushed on. It doesn't take much. It's not a hard press. It's just a slip sleeve design. But we can go ahead and get that put on in just a second. Okay. You can see right here, right above the bearing, we have a groove for a snap ring. So now we have a bearing seated. You can put it on our snap ring. Make sure it retains. And that's the snap ring here. Sometimes the snap ring don't quite go all the way down, so we have to use other methods. Such as a good screwdriver. If we can tap this down, turn it a little bit, keep going. And you'll see our snap ring is in the groove, like it should be. Alright. Now we can take our piston assembly. We can go into our piston assembly. This is a loom. Alright, so I got my other snap ring, and I thought I hit play or record, but it didn't. But we had to end up getting that behind this bearing. That's got to go down in this hole. Snap ring's got to get put in there. So we were able to get that on the bearing. It's just a little. It takes a little play to get it on there. That's all it does. Let's get our bearing down in the hole, like so. And now we'll work on getting our snap ring in place. So we'll hold it right here. We'll get on the back side, push it down to where it jumps in the groove. So now it's in the groove. Here we go. So it's not going anywhere. This is the old snap ring that we don't need. So we'll put that aside. Now we can do, this has to be clocked a certain way, which when we took it down, we did a mark here for a clock assembly. And we're going to time our piston assembly according to that mark, which is this mark here. So let's go ahead and put a little grease on our O-ring so we can keep the good stuff in, keep the bad stuff out. Alright. This is going to mate up like this. And we're going to turn and clock this just like that. This is how both holes lined up. These bolts right here are 9/16 head, 3/8 diameter. Oh, I'm sorry, 5/16 diameter, 1/2 inch head. Correction. But the threads are metric. So if you take these apart and you tap the holes in here to clean them out, don't think it's standard 5/16 thread. It's not. It's a metric thread. So I forget which one it is, but it's a metric thread. But you can put them in with a 1/2 inch wrench. Like so, 1/2 inch socket. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to break out the 1/4 inch set. The 1/4 inch set, we're going to use 1/2 inch. We'll snug one down. Get it where it needs to be. I put a few bolts in it, make sure that the holes are lined up. And I'm gonna take some of these back out because when I put them in, I'm gonna be putting them in with aniseed. My guy over there's knocking valves out of a head. Hear that banging in the background. And a mosquito. Mosquito. Okay. Get our big old jug of aniseed. I'm going to anti-seize these bolts a little bit. So next time they come out, they will come out. We won't have any rusted issues. Doesn't take much. One drop of aniseed goes a long ways. Trust me, you get a dab on your finger and by the end of the day it'll be someplace the sun don't shine. Creeps everywhere. Longer bolt. It'll be alright. Pull this one bolt back out because this is the one bolt that didn't get any aniseed yet. Okay, so now we'll get little aniseed on it. Yeah, go check out my other channel while I make these videos here. It's Diggin' Louisiana, D-I-G-G-I-N, Louisiana. And I do metal detecting as a hobby on the side. So when I get off work, I go out and I find things and make footage, stuff like that. So, but yeah. Okay. So now we can put on, this is the old spring, this is the new spring. So we're going to put the new spring. We're going to put our retainer cup. We're going to put in our spring. It's pretty stiff. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of grease to this. We don't want to use aniseed. Aniseed tends to gum up after a while. So we'll put a little bit of grease on this. Being this is a right-handed rotation on the Bendix, we're going to have, look at the threads are left-handed threads, so we got to make sure that we put a little bit of Loctite on this thing when we put it in there. We're going to grab our Bendix gear, make sure the bevel edge is facing you. This takes a little bit of force to put on, so we'll get our stuff ready. We'll put a little bit of Loctite and we'll push this down onto the shaft, and we'll turn the bolt backwards to tighten it up. And what we can do, this doesn't have to be super tight, because the Loctite is going to accommodate. So now, lay this down. This is going to be a 3/4 inch. Going to get our little impact. Take our airline off. And we're going to run it in reverse. And we can hold this. And that's all it needs. So when you hold it here on the back side, there's your ratchet. So when your starter finishes and the flywheel kicks it out, this is what will happen, so it can disengage. So now this assembly here is done. We're going to put it up in the vise. Okay, welcome back. I had to go take care of a little something. Put in some job numbers on the paperwork. Now we're going to start and assemble this housing here. I'm going to add a little dry moly to this. Dampness and moisture purposes. It doesn't matter if it gets on the table, a little brake cleaner, clean it right up. We're going to do this thing right here, weighs about 40 pounds by itself, believe it or not. Put that here. This is going to be on the drive side of the rotor, and we're going to have 2 wave washers. It's going to take up the tension. It's a spring-loaded bearing set, and we're going to, this little spring right here can be trash. We're not going to use that. So this right here is going to be a spring-loaded bearing set. It's going to go here, but we got a bearing we got to put here too. I'm going to give you a general idea. So this is going to be the rear rotor bearing. This is going to be your front rotor bearing. So that's going to fit in there like that. It's going to be sort of spring loaded. And our drive gear is going to fit down inside of there. It's a little bit distorted. It's a little bit distorted. We'll get it down here. Okay, well, give me a minute. I'm going to take care of a little piece up in here. It's got a little distortion to it. We'll be right back. Okay, so see what's happening here. These right here look like they was beat on and mushroomed. Obviously, whoever rebuilt this the last time didn't do this correctly. So, I'm going to file these down so they fit correctly again. That's all it takes, just a little bit of a touch up. things get rebuilt so many times. So many different people. And sometimes it just don't work out. But our goal is for this to fit down in these grooves. And we see that we're still not fitting because we're tight a little bit here. So we have a little bit more sanding to do. And I noticed when I took it apart it was rather tight. So whoever built this thing last time kind of hammered it in there and blemished it. So I'm gonna get it straight. There is a couple blemishes, you can see it here. There's a blemish here. And we'll get that straight as well. This is gonna take a little bit work. I'm always correcting the wrong that others do. It happens. I ain't hiding nothing from nobody. This is the reality. If you want to make it work, you gotta make it work. And then the versus the price of trying to replace such an item over a stupid little burr, it's not worth it. The prices of some of these parts are outrageous. I'm not gonna get into pricing, but just to say they're outrageous. So there's no sense to put our customers in such debt and stuff like this. I am going to fix up this one now. Get that little burr off of there. Get the burr off of there. It ain't cold, it's just a burr. Burr. Alright. Now, let's see if our parts fit. No, still got a little bit of a hang up. Yeah, they still got a little bit of a hang up. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. So let me get this off camera and we'll get it together when we get through. Be right back. Okay, we're back. We took care of that little bit of deal off camera here. We had some blemishes in here. Somebody, whoever put it on before, beat it up. We did get it to fit. It is a little snug. It's going to work out just fine though. It will be okay. So, we're going to put our wave washers back in. We're going to put our bearing back in. Give it some tappage. Our bearing floats on a spring wave washer. So this is going to go in like that. Now we can get this. Go down in our grooves. And we have our bolt. We're going to put a little bit of the magic blue stuff on it. Just so it doesn't come undone. Here like that. Grab our impact gun. This doesn't have to be too tight. That's all it takes. Probably about 40 pounds of torque. It doesn't take much. So we can keep our, and when we're going to put our other plate in and we tighten up our retainer on the shaft side, it's going to spring load this. And this will have more play. Right now it's rubbing on the rotor. But it'll free up when we get the assembly together. And we'll show that here in just a few minutes. Let me find I have another piece here. I have another deal here. I can get this rotor put on. Finish building our assembly. Okay. Alright. Get a pair of diagonal cutters. We have some old roll pins we're going to take out. That's not needed for alignment. Then we'll replace them with some new roll pins. And there's a roll pin that goes here, a short one. My guy over there is crazy. He's jamming. That short roll pin goes there for the housing. Sometimes these old roll pins get sheared, so we change them out. Just for alignment purposes for the housing. And it keeps the rotor cage from rotating inside the cylinder. So let it hang off the table a little bit. Our radio station took a crap, so now we're listening to rock. Now we're listening to Eagle 98.1. Okay, so that's down all the way. And what it does, it lines up to these holes in the plate. We need to make sure of our rotation. Okay, so our rotation is that way. Rotate, so our main drive is going to rotate that way, which is going to rotate this way. And we have to watch because the way this vent in here is slanted, so we're going to have to rotate that way. So we have to put it in like this. And that's going to give us our rotation this way. And the air comes out holes, comes out this way. You have another plate. The air gets in behind the veins kick out and expand, and then the starter starts. We're going to put this O-ring on the shaft because it's going to be needed later on. So that gets put right there. We're going to grab our vanes. Vanes going dry, like a fiberglass composite. Make sure your beveled edge goes towards the center of your shaft. You have the room to put these in so they fall in, and whenever the air gets behind them, they expand and they come out to the side of the cylinder, like so. And then air flows through here, comes in here, and vents out right here, and it goes to your exhaust side. It's a simple process. I'm going to dry molly our other end. That'll dry pretty quick. This pin goes in right there. So now, just a moment, let me make sure I got this right. This does not seem to be right. So it's going to be okay. Okay, so I had it backwards actually. So we have to opposite the rotation for the gear set. So this drum will have to turn over this way. My bad. Sometimes it happens when you look at things in reverse. Reason for that Okay, make sure I pin line. And the reason for that, because when the valve lined up with this hole, our air port didn't match. And this is a right-handed rotation. You see here it says R. If it would be a left-handed, it would say L12 instead of R12. So now our air port is open and we should be correct. So now we're going to put in our bearing. And we have an O-ring under the bearing to seal off air. This bearing right here, this retainer gave me a little trouble earlier. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to put this in our vise. This weighs probably about 45 pounds by itself. So as you can see, it's hard to turn because it's not loaded. As we get this loaded, patience. Get this. It's usually not this tight, but whoever worked on this previously kind of probably damaged it a little bit. There's nothing wrong with the thread, it's just a little tight. And we're still not turning quite right. We'll load it down a little more. And now, see? Once you pull the load off of it, it gets off the housing. And you're good. Alright, be right back. Okay, I'm back. I had a customer show up with a crankshaft and a block. So here we go, we got ourselves loaded. And as you can see, our rotor is going to spin nice and free now. So what we're going to do, we're going to lock down this screw and lock this retainer nut on the shaft so it doesn't back off, and that's going to hold our load. I think it's this one. Yep, that's what it is. Snug it down real good so it doesn't back up. That's all that's needed. There we go. Now this pin corresponds with this housing. And I said that in my disassemble video. So when you put this together, you got to make sure that the housing corresponds with the pin. Because if you flip the rotor over, you have to flip this housing over because it's the only side that has a notch. The other side does not have a notch. That's something to remember on the 815 starter. And if you need a little information on it, this is a Caterpillar OR number, but this is an Ingersoll Rand starter. But this is old. This is a very old place. I don't think Angel Air even exists anymore. But okay. Now what we're going to do here, we have this takes 4 O-rings. Takes 4 O-rings around the cylinder. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Keeps the air inside the cylinder. And once we get these O-rings on, I'm going to put a little grease on them so that the cylinder slips on it. There we go. So then we got our 4 O-rings. And we'll better get our cylinder put on it. Now O-ring seals are going to seal right here in both areas. So what I'm going to do real quick, I am going to move some of this stuff. We're going to polish this out real fast. We'll use that one. Remember now, doing stuff like this, use safety glasses. 80 grit sandpaper. It's no joke. These flapper wheels run at a high RPM. So we're not going to take much out of it. We're just going to polish it a little bit so it runs a little smoother. And the O-rings can seat better. That done. Get our air nozzle. Make sure we get the stuff out of it. I'm going to get our grease. I'm going to put a little grease on this O-ring. We put our housing on. Our housing will slip right on. The only ones that seal on the housing is this O-ring and this O-ring. The far end ones seal in the other end plate housings. But you have to get past it in order to get to the O-rings that you need. So I think I have 16% battery left. I'll be changing my battery here soon. Let me go ahead and do that, and I'll catch y'all back in just a few minutes. We still have a little bit of time to go on this thing, not much. Okay, so welcome back. I'm gonna change out our battery. Got that out the way. So I'm gonna line up our dowel pin here with our housing. Let's put a little grease in our housing just so it doesn't give us any issues trying to get it on there. Okay. And I have to go find another tube of grease here soon because I got to put some in the gear before I put this assembly all together. This tends to be kind of tough to do. I say tough to do. And that's the benefits of honing out the housing just a little bit so it doesn't give you those issues. Now we spin just fine. Alright. Okay, so our little dowel pin was being difficult, but I wasn't going to bore y'all with stuff like that. So now we're going to get this out of our vise. Now we added more weight. Oh my god, it's getting heavier. Now we have a air actuated motor. So you can hear the veins spreading out. When you turn it, the gravity pulls them out, or centrifugal momentum force, if you want to get technical. Okay, so now we gotta go find some grease. I have some tubes here that was pre-used, and I'm gonna finish using them. We are going to take this part and put it up here. We'll bind it on our gear so it doesn't fall. It's not. My apologies one more time. Got interrupted. Okay, so I'm gonna get all I can out of these old tubes of grease here that I've been using up. All it does is just fill this cavity up with grease. And you'll see it, I'll put you up here. You fill this cavity up with grease, and when you put your main gear on, it drives the bull gear, and then it's just all encased. You know, once you put it in, it doesn't come out. So I'm trying to salvage as much of this grease as I can. Use it in here. Oh, grease. Gotta love grease. Grease is good. Grease is fun. Grease. Oh, speaking of grease, Grease is a good movie too. It's an old movie. Now I'm telling my age, but anyway, I thought it was fun. Too bad Olivia Newton-John had died last year. Yep. So we're gonna put as much grease as we can in here. And I have one more tube somewhere. I just had it in my hand. Oh, it's right over here. Okay. And we're going to squeeze off the excess out of this tube as well. Use it all up. And this is gonna be plenty for this. Alright, so we'll take all these to the trash. And we're going to dab a little bit of that grease inside of here. Smear it on this rim, our O-ring seal. And we put our housing on. We're almost concluded with the build of the starter. So now we have to watch for our two line-up dimples. And we have them on this housing right here on the exhaust side. This is where your air comes out. So just to get this up here like that. And that takes a little bit to get that seated down into the housing. Yeah, we use a lot of hammers. It does seal my O-ring, but it is a tight one. Nothing ever goes to plan around this place. Now we got that part done. You see we have our line-up dimples here, and we have our line-up dimples here. And now we have one more O-ring. Correction, we had one more O-ring. Okay, give me a second. Somebody came to my table and stuff was moved. Let me find it. All right, we have found our O-ring. What's going to happen, this O-ring here goes right here around this bearing. Okay. It goes around that bearing right there. It's pain, it wants to roll. But that's going to go around that bearing, and when you're going to put the housing on, it seals between the housing and the end plate. So it's sealed inside of this housing right here. So when we do that here, we're going to take a little bit of grease. And we're going to put here for that O-ring seal. We're going to find our dimples. And there's our line of dimple. I say that. But I tell you what. thing that we take pictures. See, there we go. It's a good thing we take pictures, so we know how to put this stuff back. All right. So our vent is going to go opposite of our exhaust vent, our intake vent. So that's going to pull down. All right. Last thing to get. Last thing to get is our 4 bolts, and we will put a little anti-seize on these. Sharing is caring. I mean, people can say what they want to say. You build these starters all day long. Sometimes it doesn't go to plan. Sometimes you have issues. Sometimes things don't fit. It's just the truth. Just a moment. Okay, so we just had to tighten our vise up a little bit. It was kind of rocking. Safety first. We'll add a little anti-seize on these 2 bolts here. And we'll put these 2 in. And the last 2. It's kind of hard for y'all to see it. Okay. I think this is the one. Yes, that is the one. And get our impact. Start off our bolts. Going to make sure that we don't put our threads in a bind. Okay. Pull these up. Now our vise is going to hold our starter. And you can hear the vanes, and now you hear our ratchet. And you hear our vanes. And the starter rotates. And you hear a ratchet when it goes the other way. Okay, so that's gonna complete. It's gonna complete the build of the starter. So I'm gonna hit a little brake cleaner to knock the fingerprints off of it, and I'll get it painted. It's gonna be painted yellow. And then we're gonna take it outside and test it after a while. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Part 2 done. All right, we'll come back into this for a minute in case you're wondering how these starters get tested. It is noisy. The air compressor is behind me. This is how they get tested. Always put in your keepers. Safety first. That thing will whip you if you don't. Here we go. Sometimes they hang. There we go. My air pressure getting low in the tank, that's why. But there you have it. Aluminum, so it doesn't always work out right. It tends to grab. So you can lightly tap. Get our piston assembly down. Oh, look at that. Went in there a little bit and it decided it just wanted to pop right out. Aluminum, man, aluminum's crazy. Or aluminium, as some people across the pond call it. Okay, now there's a groove in the top of here for another snap ring too to hold this assembly together. So now we're seated. So nice and smooth now. The other bearing was noisy. This is going to be this snap ring here. You see, you got the grooves. You can catch it with your pick or your screwdriver to get it loose. Okay, so that's in. That's the assembled piece. This assembly will go here with this. But first, we need to put on this big O-ring. This is our O-ring for our piston actuation. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this assembly out. We're going to get a little bit of grease. And we're going to get in here with that. Because we need something for the actuation to bind on. We got air to seal on our O-rings. So make sure we grease it up pretty good. Alright, now we can put our spring seat, our spring, our Bendix shaft, piston, and what we'll do again, we're going to add a little bit of grease to the inner O-ring here because that goes around our piston sleeve. That is going to go around this. Okay, and we're going to add a little bit more to the outside of the retainer seal. And when it goes down into the housing, we can put our other snap ring in behind it, and it doesn't score our O-ring. Let's pick our buddy up. Get it out the way. We are going to go and assemble this item on a press. And the thing you got to watch out for when you're assembling something like this, you got to give your shaft a proper clearance on the bottom to clear through the seal. So what we're going to do, we're going to adjust our ram down a little more because this press doesn't have a whole lot of travel. So we're going to make it travel. Don't try this at home, kids. These steel blocks here are probably about 60 pounds a piece. They're pretty thick, so caution when moving stuff like this. Okay, so now we can push this down, and our shaft should fall into our hole. Into our bearing. Bear with me. It's not always easy. So we'll adjust this to get the shaft through the bearing. It's got to line up in the bearing and the seal. So now we're close. I say this, it doesn't have a whole bunch of stroke to it, so we can accommodate. So now we can press until we see our retainer stop and our piston starts to move. Okay, so now our piston is moving. Our shaft is coming out the bottom. We can push down the retainer. Get that off of there. We'll push down the retainer until it gets in the groove. And then we can put our snap ring back on and get it in the groove. Okay, so now our snap ring is in place. Careful when you take this thing apart, it will get you. So now we're assembled. Snap ring's in place, no harm done. Now to test out this actuation part to make sure everything is going to function correctly. And you see how that works. When air is applied, the piston actuates, throws the Bendix into the flywheel when the engine starts, and then it throws the Bendix back out when air is disengaged. Okay, so we got that part done up. There is another O-ring that goes here for the seal. We are going to put in a lip seal right here. I have another small wooden block. Let me see what I did with that thing. Here we go. I can use this. This should work. Okay, so that'll work. I can take in my lip seal here, and this is going to go here. Just tap it in. That's all you got to do. You don't have to be beat on. And that's to seal this shaft here when it goes in here for the assembly. Alright, so now we can take this piece and we can put this aside, and we'll put Bendix gear on all later when we get through with the rest of the assembly. So let's take this gear. We have this. This should be. This is going to be our bearing for this housing. Okay. Now what we can also do, we can use our Detroit blower installation tool in our kit in order to install this bearing. It should fit because it's a flat surface, but it should fit the shaft. So this will help us out. Now we have a raised lip right here, so we can put our snap ring on. And we're going to use a different snap ring pliers. It's a little bit stronger. Okay, so now our snap ring is on there. Our shaft has a little bit of a blemish to it, but that's not our fault. It's something that was done in the past, and it doesn't affect anything. The bearing goes on, the snap ring held on. It's a good piece. It keeps no problem. So now we are going to we have another snap ring that we need. Just a moment, be right back.